Hey there, Alex here. Been a while since I did a throwback, and since we now know what the Pixel 2 will bring, I think it's the perfect time to look back at the Pixel again, to see how it's holding up and of course, whether it is worth upgrading to the Pixel 2. First up, the design. I actually still like the way it looks despite its large chin and not quite black enough front bezels. It's simple and clean, much like the software experience. Though I can't say the same for the rear glass panel, which picks up scratches really easily. It's not so much for the cosmetics, but more fear that it will affect the camera quality if the area covering the camera gets scratched up. So eventually, I just slapped a debrand skin on it and called it a day. And that's not the only issue that people have noticed. There have been reports of the microphone and vibrator motor breaking a little too easily, so if you're buying a used Pixel here in Singapore, it's an additional risk since there's no local warranty. But if you can live with that, what you get is a phone that is as enjoyable to use as any other flagship phones around. The Snapdragon 821 processor is still such a solid performer, other than the tendency to get a tiny bit warm from time to time. But I have to say though, after using the Snapdragon 835, it's hard to ignore how much improvements there are when it comes to power and battery efficiency. The trump card that the Pixel still holds is the software experience. Clean and fluid user interface and fast software updates from Google themselves. While most other devices are still treading along with Android Nougat, the Pixel has been running Android Oreo for over a month now. While there are still some growing pains like the need to wait for some developers to update their compatibility with Android Oreo, and the battery life seems to have taken a small hit, it's an overall enjoyable experience still. Most apps still runs really quickly, and the phone still lasts me almost a day of moderate use with around 4 hours of screen on time. It's no OnePlus 5, but it's still bearable to me. But the most enjoyable part of the phone is definitely the camera, which is still one of my favorite cameras around. There isn't any fancy dual camera setup or ultra slow motion recording. Heck, there isn't even optical image stabilization on this phone. What we get instead is the power of Google's computational photography. I'll just keep quiet for a bit and let the images speak for themselves. For video recording, the electronic stabilization still amazes me when I see it. But that only applies to videos in good lighting though. This is probably the time to bring up the flaring issue due to the lens design. It's a little annoying, but since it only happens when the light hits the lens at a particular angle, I think it's fine. Avoid that and it's all good. So would I still recommend buying a Pixel today? Definitely, if it's cheap enough and you're willing to live with some of its quirks. Not to mention that you get unlimited original resolution photos and videos back up to Google Photos when you're using the Google Pixel. As someone who swears by Google Photos, this makes it even more worth it. The next question is of course whether it's worth upgrading to the Pixel 2. The Pixel 2 brings with it a lot of things that I wanted on the first Pixel, like stereo speakers and IP67 water resistance. Not to mention it has better hardware specifications, seemingly astounding looking cameras, 3 years of support for major software updates, and a bunch of other smaller additional features. Sure, the bezels are still huge, but for a smaller size phone, I think it's fine. The bezels actually makes using the phone one-handed a lot easier since I don't have to reach too far down to use the navigation buttons. Of course, you can always just go for the Pixel 2 XL for that slimmer bezels, taller screen and bigger battery, something I think most people will do anyway. Just keep in mind that there is no headphone jack anymore. If price doesn't matter, I definitely think it's worth taking a look at the newer Pixels. But of course, if you're not in a hurry to upgrade like me, the Pixel is still a really great phone. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and see you guys on the next one.